Hello and welcome to the Business of the Business podcast. I'm your co-host, JP John Poz, with a two-man power trip. Of course, joining me is the financial wrestling genius himself, Mr. Lavie Margolin. Mr. TrumpMania, how you doing?
Hey, John, I'm doing good. A week without guests, which is great. We miss our wonderful guests. We're really burning up the news sites. Brett Lauderdale, Titus O'Neill. When I was getting like Google News suggestions, I was like, wait, that's from our podcast, which is cool. But a lot of news to cover this week.
Yes, we will be talking more about Brett and GCW in a second, but I guess the all-encompassing center stage Atlanta, because not only do they have GCW there, they have a lot of other wrestling shows and other things going on. So I know you have a little quote about that, I think.
Oh, so yeah, let's talk about center stage, and that's something else. Sorry, John,
Oh, okay. I
making
thought that was all-encompassing. Okay. All right.
no,
Let's go
making
center
a
stage
mess of
first.
the notes. Sorry about that. So,
Oh,
center stage, right? We were talking about the Hammerstein Ballroom, like, you know, uh, it's not right. Booking a venue right before, right after, whatever it is. Center stage, obviously, a lot, less risk site, one though with as much history or probably multiple history compared to Hammerstein based on the number of WCW shows. But as we're recording this a day or two before Mastermind for GCW, the ticket sales are looking kind of bleak, honestly. Uh, Maybe like 3 rows of tickets sold. I could certainly pick up, but I don't think it was necessarily due to other promotions running, um, but just challenges with GCW, and Brett talked about just live events in general. But West Side Gun announced Heels Have Eyes Atlanta, which is the 4th edition. A little bit hard to follow the way they roll stuff out, but it was just announced like literally December 1st for a show that's coming up on the 12th. John, I haven't been able to find the tickets on sale yet, but there's a lot of buzz to it. So I wouldn't be surprised if it sold out just, even if they put tickets on sale the day of. I'm assuming it'll be earlier than that. But they are benefiting a lot from TNA talent being in town. I don't know if that's like a formal arrangement. I'm assuming that it is because, in their images, they use like, let's say, Masha with the TNA women's title. I think Moose is on the card and so on. So, and then just the next day and the day after is TNA, who has a very modest setup in regards to their reserve seats. Which are basically sold out for both nights, and then most of the venue is general admission.
interesting. So what is the corporate complications? What does that mean?
Yeah, John. So this is more in a reference to PR, probably a little bit of like inside baseball for us. It's interesting, just in terms of reaching out to different promotions. Some are very open to things. Not saying that they all have to sign up for our podcast, but other times, especially like in a corporate environment where there's broadcast partner, yourself, your promotion is owned by a big corporation, like to go through PR can be very difficult. And I think we've seen that with some pro wrestling promotions. They may even aspire and get some mainstream articles, but the wrestling side doesn't get as much coverage, and they're missing out on some of the fans there. So just a little a little note on challenges from a PR perspective. I think promotions should think about, being able to connect with the pro wrestling side of things a bit more. And this comes to mind about 3 promotions so far, but we certainly benefited from many wonderful guests as well, where that wasn't a complication at all. And certainly sometimes PR can open the door as well. That might be harder to do if you just reach out to talent. So it's a balance.
Now, here's an interesting thing that we've talked about, and obviously Brett talked about it. Effie on his own podcast talked about this. The fact that GCW is running Hammerstein. We're talking about Central Center Stage and what's going on there, but Hammerstein, GCW is running there. Then all of a sudden, AEW is running there a bunch of shows after GCW announced their big show, and obviously a lot of different opinions, varying opinions, what's going on there. So, in my thinking, Tony Khan possibly pulled the Vince McMahon and, you know, booked a building that somebody else had booked beforehand and trying to, take some of their luster away and make sure that they go to his show and not their show and kind of hurt the other show. So, some people are saying, oh, that's not true. Then AEW for Ring of Honor booked Matt Cardona, who's like the GCW stalwart and GCW commissioner, all those stuff. Then they booked him for Final Battle against Chris Jericho. So now I am further convinced, 100% convinced, that AEW did this on purpose. What's going on with Hammerstein?
No, it's a good point, John. So I think it's one of two things: A, what you talked about, or B, this is pro wrestling. Even if it didn't start out intended as so, don't you think like Tony Khan would get like a real high out of like, the lights go out during Effie and Ali Catch's I guess number one contenders match. They come back on. It's someone in a mask holding a kendo stick. They take off the mask. It's Tony Khan. The crowd goes crazy.
Right.
It's Tony Khan. And he whacks Effie over the head. Ali catches conflicted. She covers Effie for the 1, 2, 3. I think like Khan has dreamed of this sort of stuff all his life, right? But he knows he can't be a wrestler. I think he talked about some sort of time cop wrestling. I'm not sure what that is recently. So of course he's going to get in the ring at some point. But this would be a nice opportunity for him. And I wouldn't be completely shocked. I'm not starting rumors. I obviously have no insider knowledge. It's probably like you talked about, John. But there is something to work with here.
Wow, look at you putting the Booker hat on. That would be pretty cool, actually. Would it definitely would work. But to me,
bro.
Yeah. Yeah, we've seen that before. So I think it would work for sure. But with Hammerstein, how is GCW selling, and then how's everybody else selling?
Yeah, I'm not as panicked as some people like super fans or whatever it may be. I think they're doing okay. You have to know that the first show, it's going to be like something unique and whatever. And then next time it's just going to be harder. So 84 tickets moved since 7 days ago when WrestleTix posted this. So this is a couple of days ago. So 765 in a 20-5 setup. Now, there's a ways to go. So it's not going to be consistent. You can't do the math necessarily 10 tickets a day. But 48 days till the show at that time, times 10, maybe a little bit more, 500 tickets, 1,400. That's not bad, but it's not what they're aiming for necessarily. But the AEW and ROH setups are smaller, of course. It's not all the sections have been opened yet, so it's not just a logistics issue, but that's closer, I think, to... what is it, 1,500? I'd have to double check on that. So they're not going for that number because it's more of course, a televised presentation. So
if AEW sells out and GCW sells out, how come GCW will have more tickets sold? What's the breakdown? Is it because of the setup?
Yeah. So according to WrestleTix, section 101 and 105 are not included in the setup. So those could open. There doesn't seem like a reason why not. Now, on the floor is really where you have that variability once you open up the balconies. So ROH and AEW currently have a very large setup, or at least a much larger setup on the floor. So that's about 1,400 tickets. So it'll be interesting also. The ROH AEW shows could very much sell out, and those probably will, based on very limited availability right now. Interestingly, actually, I thought the ROH would sell quicker because of just the history in the building, but obviously AEW has the much bigger brand right now. But we could very much see a scenario where AEW and ROH sell out, GCW doesn't, but exceeds their number in the building.
Interesting. Okay, gotcha. As far as AEW should sell out, I would guess, right? I mean, I would imagine, but remains to be seen as of yet.
Yeah, so that's just a couple days ago. I grabbed this, and there was just between, depending on the night, 85 and 100 tickets left. So I think that'll sell out for sure. I've been thinking about it a little bit. I guess it'll depend what's available, like in terms of resale at the time, but for either the Saturday or Sunday show. But of course, as we talked about, we're both going separately to the WWE holiday show. So it might be a lot, but if there's something especially appealing, I'm open to it.
What is going on in the world of GCW outside of what we've talked about so far?
So just a quick note, and probably not on most people's radar unless they're listening to our show regularly, or Gavin Bridge certainly, or into fast channels. But Fight has a 24/7 fast channel that's pretty widely distributed. It hadn't had GCW content on it before that I'm aware of, but Mastermind will stream live on the Fast channel, which is typically behind the Fight Plus or Triller Plus paywall. So that'll be an interesting experiment to see what happens with that. Just in terms of their upcoming shows, as we're recording this, Tampa and of course Atlanta. Um, Actually, maybe I'll go out of my way to find that on one of my fast channels. I want to see what center stage looks like as it's going on. But then next week, Phoenix and LA. So LA will be interesting to see how that holds up. I think it was nearly sold out, but not sold out last time, breaking that streak. Seattle. Interestingly, also, John, there's no Atlantic City double shot this year. New Year's
Oh,
Day. There was the the Jersey Pro and so on. It's just a Ridgefield Park show, so low stakes. Into the new year, Rochester, um, and then France, the UK, and then the Jersey City Cup in mid-February, and probably a little bit to be filled in January and February up to that.
what is going on in New Japan Pro Wrestling right now?
So Walter Pyramid in Long Beach is December 15th. I think it was about 1,300 tickets distributed, which isn't bad, of course, in today's world, but it is a venue that's set up that can be set up for just under 3,000 tickets sold. Last year, they actually, in May of 2023, 2,903 tickets. I don't remember if that was Mercedes Monet's debut with the promotion that really got them there, but that seems like a really long time ago. And now it's just about 1,300 tickets. And then in January in San Jose, 884 tickets distributed of a 2143 setup. Actually, Mercedes Monet was in San Jose, not in the Walter Pyramid, so I don't remember what the draw was there last year. And then just a note that they established a merchandise distribution in Europe, as of course they're always looking for growth outside of Asia and Japan, certainly. One of the world's premier promotions is thrilled to announce the launch of its UK-based European online store, bringing New Japan's exclusive merchandise to fans across Europe, expanding the promotion's global footprint. Event Merchandising Ltd, a trusted partner in global branding, and this distribution company has worked with WWE, TNA, and World of Sport Wrestling, at least the modern iteration of it.
Now, MLW seems to be rocking and rolling with Eric Bischoff lately, who was just on NXT also. So what's going on with MLW?
Yeah, John, did you see either Bischoff appearance? I caught the beginning of his appearance on MLW, and it was like a little awkward, a little retro to me.
It was well, what I saw was him and Matt Riddle and Tom Lawler, and Lawler and Riddle were making fun of him for bankrupting, quote unquote, WCW, and they were kind of going back and forth.
Yeah, and like Bischoff, it kind of felt like somebody that opens like a comedy show or something. It's like, who was your favorite member of the NWO? Rick, Scott Hall, Kevin
Yeah.
Nash. Hulk. So that was like a little bit cheesy. I don't know if it was like more impactful on NXT. 3,000 people, at least when I clicked in, were watching live MLW. I don't think it means much at that point. We'd have to see sort of like plus 7 days. How did it impact compared to like other MLW streams of that nature? But I think it was a good idea. We're trying. It was just interesting that that this was announced, and then a couple days before it was NXT. They have their Battle Riot in LA, which is at a Commerce Casino and Hotel in Las Vegas. I didn't even know gambling was legal in Las Vegas. I mean, in Los Angeles. I thought you had to go to Las Vegas. So I've been behind the times as a New Yorker here. But upcoming, they're North Richland Hills on January 11th. I love that venue. Um, Center Stage, but nowhere close to anyone else on February 8th. Cicero on May 10th. And then, of course, the announced Battle Riot in advance of that on April 5th in LA. Bischoff's one shot, it certainly looked like a sellout or near sellout to me. In Texas, a few rows deep at this point. Not all the tickets were put on sale. Super Fight in Center Stage just has a minimal amount of tickets distributed, but it's very early for that.
Do you think Bischoff being on NXT right before MLW hurt MLW at all? Because people maybe tune in to see him on NXT, or do you think it helped MLW that he was just on NXT?
I think it hurt. Especially you're like promoting it like as Bischoff, he doesn't want to do too much with wrestling, and Paul Walter Heiser Hauser, sorry, convinced him to come on and whatever. Like there was a whole thing, but I don't like. I think if the NXT appearance was like buzzworthy, and I know the rating didn't indicate that, but if it was buzzworthy, it'd be like, okay, MLW is cool because they have like NXT. They just featured this wrestling legend or whatever it may be. But I think it's sort of like it took something away, and it kind of felt on brand with like publicly what some people feel about Eric Bischoff, which is like that he's not loyal to one thing than another. And I didn't get to see the parts, but it was kind of like cheesy about like promoting 83 weeks. Like I think it's a good name for a podcast, but like the 83 weeks dancers and just all that stuff. And he didn't come out to any music.
Oh, really? I was wondering about that. Interesting.
At least as far as I don't know if there was an audio problem. I know, right? They just turned over whatever was going on there with the people in charge of production, but I couldn't hear any music when he came out.
As far as TNA is concerned, what is going on? Because I saw they were promoting shows possibly in New York City and Los Angeles, California.
Yeah, so maybe we should have let off with this, John, but this, especially New York, really struck me by surprise. The Galen Center in LA, yes, it's 10,000 seat, but it's not a a premier venue. Ring of Honor had, I think, for a pay-per-view show at some point 3,400, 4,400, something like that, for Rebellion. But Slammiversary, the UBS Arena, right, like on what is that, on the edge of Long Island, like Long Island, New York City.
Yeah, Long Island.
July, right, like July 20th. That's a 17,000 seat venue.
Yeah, that's huge.
I was like, Tony Khan would be proud. One of the things that I felt like TNA was really learning was that for their premium live events, lean into like these nice size, like, even not even mid-level, like small venues, and you can like really celebrate. You got 2,000 people there, 2,500, and for the first few rows you charged a lot, and you did well, and it looked cool, and everything like that. But now you're running a 17,000 seat building. But like, John, I was thinking about it, like compared to the old days, right? Like when WWF would run Madison Square Garden, Nassau Coliseum, and Brendan Byrne Arena, right by the Giant Stadium complex. Now we have in the same market 5, right? Because you have Nassau Coliseum, the Garden, Newark, Barclays, and UBS. We know that MSG is the most expensive indoor arena to run, but I think maybe with some of the other venues, like maybe it's not as expensive, but still, like running such a venue doesn't exactly make sense. But really curious to watch that. So, as part of the description, more than 1 million votes were cast in the unprecedented online destination selection offered to TNA fans. Yet there was no overwhelming winner, New York City or LA. So TNA Wrestling confirmed today they'll have a major event in both cities. The Rebellion pay-per-view will be Sunday, April 27th, originally from the Galen Center, the campus of USC. Summiversary is Sunday, July 20th at UBS in Belmont Park. The Galen Center is home to the Trojans and USC volleyball team. I'm beyond excited to defend the TNA World Championship from coast to coast in two of the most iconic cities in the world, Los Angeles and New York, said Nick Nemeth. This is groundbreaking day for TNA wrestling. I cannot wait. And so on. Also, it's a mega on sale date. Last time there was like some technical difficulties that made it not a mega on sale date, but they'll be in El Paso at the County Coliseum, 5,250 seat building, and St. Joseph, Missouri, Kansas City area, 3,800 seats. So, especially with the bigger venues, how many years was there talk about like Herb Abrams and like running Vegas? What was it, the MGM Grand, and like how empty it was and so on. And now we have like week to week, and I know they're moving away from it, but AEW running something like this, and now TNA trying it, it just doesn't make that much sense. Draven on X had an interesting theory. WWE has a Raw in Dallas a day after TNA Genesis is also in Dallas. Then Saturday night's main event in San Antonio, Texas is just 2 days after a live event at TV taping in San Antonio. This can't be a coincidence. I feel like it probably is. Like, I know we're talking about GCW getting sniped at by AEW, but I think in this sense, Genesis January 19th. Looks like they're doing okay on the floor. It's certainly nothing like last time that they were. Well, actually, no, this is the Dallas area. So interesting to see what ends up happening with that. But San Antonio, just a quick search of that. In January, they had moved their first row in most sections, but not much more than that at this point. A smart move, they've launched a Spanish language YouTube channel. TNA has. And that's the TNA news of the week.
I do think Draven might be onto something here because of all the WWE talent that's been on TNA, all the TNA talent that's been on NXT. I do think that they're probably going to give them some people, like they've been giving them some talent. So I do think that they're going to be in close proximity. There's no doubt they're going to have WWE guys on that show, and there's no doubt there's going to be TNA guys on the other show too. So I do think that's probably why they're running Long Island too. I think they're going to give them a couple WWE guys. Not that they'll sell that arena out or even come close, but I feel like that's going to sell at least some tickets.
Oh, that's an interesting point. So maybe modifying it to say, like, I don't feel that they're doing it to hurt them. Maybe they're looking for like some synergy there, just like, especially like if it crosses over to a pay-per-view weekend and so on, then like people travel for those sorts of things. But yeah, but not to hurt them.
Right. This isn't a AEW GCW thing. I don't think, because they've already given them so much talent. I mean, I was at a TNA show months ago, and NXT guys were all over the show, literally throughout the show. So, and I feel like maybe WWE could loan out GCW some more WWE talent as well. They've been giving them a lot as it is.
Yeah, it'd be good to get them some reps, as we've talked about. John, I don't remember the TNA show that you went to. When was that?
What was that? The Hardys were on it. Joe Hendry was on it. Was that?
Oh, in Philly, right?
Yes, June.
Yeah.
June in
Okay.
Philly.
Now I remember. Okay. And like you had a sense that it was like already like a hot, like a heated up promotion.
Oh yeah, there we. Yep. And Charlie Dempsey, who's Regal's son, was on it. There was a bunch of NXT talent that was on the show too.
Actually, let's stay there a second because I didn't put it in the topics, but I was sort of thinking about like who is like outside of WWE, and I think AEW has been explored to death in other places, but like of the promotions that we talk about on a regular basis, like who is going into 2025 with the most momentum? And I think that's clearly TNA.
Yes. Yeah, I would agree.
Um,
Because did you see the ratings? Obviously, NXT wasn't great, but they beat AEW again. They beat Dynamite. I know it's not the same night, but Rampage they did less than 150K. I know that show's going bye bye in 4 weeks, but not good.
yeah, WoW is like if we
Killing
could
them.
get these if we could get any syndication ratings recently, which we
Yeah.
haven't been able to get, assuming that that those probably don't swing too much, they're just dominating by default anything that isn't Raw, SmackDown, or Dynamite.
Yeah, definitely. Now, what about NWA? What's going on with them, and do you think they have any momentum heading into 2025?
They have something cooking. It's just not momentum, I would say. They have interesting like things. I think Billy Corgan's basically enjoying himself that like he loved the territory, so he's building up his own territory. So it's kind of fun to see that. But the Dothan, Alabama show did really well last year. I don't see it pointed in the same ways, but I've been checking just to see if they're getting local coverage, which they are on the couple of the affiliates. So just a little bit about that. From WTVY, the NWA is getting set to make its return to the Wiregrass area with its upcoming signature live event, Looks That Kill, the second major wrestling event in Dothan in the past year, following up on NWA's March signature live event, Hard Times. It's set to feature several of the promotion's top stars competing in a multitude of matches. One of those matches is the women's cage match, Natalia Markova and La Princesa Tiffany Nieves inside the confined structure. So they're getting the coverage. Ticket sales aren't looking bad for them. It's just that they did really well in this venue last year. And the OC Theater in January, that looks like, based on the potential setup, just maybe like the first row gone. There looks like a section in the middle that's all dark, but then tickets after that too. So I would say just like the first row necessarily tickets have been sold, besides a little bit here and there. Just thinking about like momentum before we talk a little bit about AEW. MLW, like by default, has a little bit because it seemed like they were really, running on a very tight budget, of course, till they received the lawsuit money, as far as been reported. And, they've been going to more venues, trying different things with Bischoff and so on. But the inconsistency in terms of distribution has been a challenge for them, as it's been for the NWA. Like, at least, and thankful for it that they've had BN Sports for so many years already, which is really interesting. And it's holding on as a network. I always love the ratings for the year of networks, and BN is rated, so that's a plus. There are some networks that aren't rated at all, but usually they come in about 3,000 viewers on average in prime time. Wrestling typically exceeds the average. But who else? GCW, I think, is like, ticket sales are down. As Brett talked about, Triller viewers are up, but that's not apparent to the general population. They have the January show, so that could go one way or another. So I would say their momentum is down slightly based on previous. WoW is just doing their thing as long as they get renewed. They're pretty good. New Japan is down, right? Like they have positive impression. People think about them, but when they, in terms of drawing for shows, the numbers are way down. We don't hear about any access ratings anymore. So really, of the challenger brands, I think TNA is the only one that's showing not only momentum but really strong momentum.
What is going on with AEW lately? I know we don't talk about it too much. Well, I mean, we do, but we don't really break down the ticket sales as much on this show as we do some other ones. But man, they've got some dreadful ticket sales going on. What's going on with them?
Yeah, so as we've talked about, it's been reported like everyone was wondering like why are you running such big venues, and apparently it was they had to get their equipment ready to run like mid, smaller venues that don't have the type of huge ceilings or rigging systems. But now they're going to some venues that are relatively smaller for sure, but it looks like maybe they won't even break 1,000. um, January 8th in Clarkville, Tennessee, 699 tickets. So, more than a month out, but we'll see. And in Athens, Georgia, Atkins Ford Arena, 609 tickets distributed Saturday, January 11th. So, like, once you lose momentum, right, there is no bottom, right? We've seen when the WWF struggled following, early 90s, when WCW got cold, when TNA got cold, when uh, Ring of Honor got cold, like the numbers kept going and going and going. WWF was only to a certain degree, and WCW a different degree than that. But for the others, like it could really, they could just be doing a few hundred a show if things keep getting colder.
What's going on with Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling? Scott D'Amore's promotion.
Yeah, so Justin Barrasso for Undisputed had an interview with him. People were curious after the first two shows, so I just have some snippets of that. Maple Leaf Pro returns in the first quarter of 2025, and D'Amore plans to unveil more about its upcoming show schedule and then how frequently their events will run. We have a lot of moving pieces right now, and all leads to an exciting 2025. We're going to be the heart of Canadian wrestling and a force in the global wrestling landscape. With TNA in his rear view, D'Amore became energized by his new plan. He would revive Canadian wrestling by creating a brand new promotion. D'Amore had acquired the rights to Maple Leaf back in 2022 from the Tunney family, which included all the archive footage. He believes there's no better time than the present to rejuvenate wrestling in Canada. This is a way to honor the traditions of the past and forge a new path for Canadian wrestling. The focus for D'Amore has always been to invest in the fan base so that the fans invest in the product. That's the exact approach he's taking as the owner of Maple Leaf. The immigration laws in Canada allow non-Canadians to come perform and compete, which allows our Canadian talent to be in the ring with the very best in the world. This helps both Canadian and other international talent show what they can do. So it'll be interesting to follow. Like when TNA was a bit colder, so I'm happy if they're proving me wrong. But I was thinking like that they should just be the Canada's biggest promotion rather than like a perpetual number 3, in the U.S. or in North America or the U.S. and Canada,
Right.
more broadly.
Now you have here, and there. So you're kind of all over the place. You're talking about micro championship wrestling, about OVW, you're talking about Poughkeepsie and ACW. Run it all down for us. What is going on
Yes.
around the globe, here and there?
Yes. So here's our report from around the world. Casanova Valentine, the deathmatch wrestler who does no ring death matches, whatever. They run more towns, more shows, and draw bigger crowds than everyone. The real secret door is doing a show with them. I'm not sure about the last part, in terms of like how it would translate to others, but that actually might be a good idea for someone to try. But we've talked about that for a long time. No one talks about them, right? Like no one talks about WOW success in terms of television. No one talks about Micro Wrestling Federation in terms of live events. OVW is now on Nessun, for whatever that means, right? Like years ago, that would have meant a lot,
Yeah.
in terms of people needing to watch the Celtics, the Red Sox, Bruins. But there's still a Nessun that's national, so they're on that, as well as on the local New England portion as well, both overnight, one later than the other. Poughkeepsie, keeping your eye on the show from the former Mid-Hudson Civic Center, 371 tickets distributed. WrestleCade had its biggest weekend ever. Apparently 20,000 wrestling fans showed up. I don't doubt that. My question is though, like, if it's over multiple days, are they counting the fans maybe 3 times? Because there's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That would make more sense to me rather than 20,000 standalone fans, because otherwise, like, where are they? And a quiet success every year, but a big success. In Milwaukee, there's always the Blizzard Brawl. So ready for a slamming Saturday night at the Blizzard Brawl 2024. And I think it's Braun Strowman seems to be able to get out there no matter what every year. I don't know his connection to this fundraiser or whatever, but he seems to be able to go.
He's friends with Dave Hero, the guy that runs the GLCW out there, who runs the Blizzard Brawl. He's good friends with Dave, and obviously Al Snow is really good friends with Dave as well.
Oh, nice. See, John, you had the answer, which is perfect.
Yes. He's friends with a lot of guys around the business. Actually, his son Cal was in OVW, was on the show Wrestlers for quite a bit. So good connection there.
Actually, speaking of wrestlers, did you just see that there's going to be an A&E LFP or something like that? What is it? Like
LFG.
for development. LFG. I'm wondering if they ran that name by anyone before they announced it, or maybe they did that on purpose. WWE LFG, the competition series reminiscent of Tough Enough. We'll see would be pro wrestlers vying for a WWE contract while receiving training from Triple H. Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker, Booker T, Mickie James, and Bubba Ray will be mentoring the contestants who will compete in weekly matches, in addition to learning the behind-the-scenes aspects of the business. Good, if they could figure out more ways to make money. It's interesting that it's always like separate from their actual training. Like, we're not seeing them, in, the tryout classes, or maybe we will, but we don't see them in the tryout classes, the NXT, the NIL, the the new WWE contracts that they have now. This is a separate thing.
Yes, Legends and Future Greats, LFG, not to be confused with the copyrighted, I think, Tom Brady quote, "Let's effing go." If you remember, he would always go, "Let's go, let's." So, which is the name of his podcast too. So, but Legends and Future Greats.
That's funny, John. I'm so in the wrestling bubble that I thought that was like a Brett Lauderdale thing.
Oh no, that's a Tom Brady thing.
That's funny. I'll have to tell Brett next time we have him on the podcast.
Yeah, so that's interesting. Another show for WWE. And they just had that Roku series too, which they show you some of the training that they did around WrestleMania for a bunch of new recruits, but they don't kind of show you everything. Like a little bit of Robbie Brooks side, but they don't really show you too much as far as their side of the training. So interesting to see how they go about it and what they do for this show.
Yeah, no, that's actually an interesting reminder. I remember the Roku now that you mention it, but like they didn't put, I guess like maybe there wasn't a lot of rights to it or whatever. It was just to try. Like it seemed like it was here and gone, kind of like when they had that Facebook series, and I guess the X thing is still ongoing, right? The Speed.
Yep.
Which got a lot of promotion the first week, but then it was quiet since then.
Yeah, weird. They don't really promote it too much, but I guess just strictly on X. But it does decent numbers from what I saw. A lot of shows going to X now. Yeah, NWA is on X. Obviously, other politicians and other shows like Jim Rome and the sports guys too.
Yeah, the NWA thing seems more like I think they announced 5 weeks. This is like like one of those old NXT seasons where it just kept going till they figured out something to do.
Yep, definitely. So let's wrap this bad boy up and head towards the plugs. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at 2Man Power Trip. Lavie, how about you?
Follow me on X, Lavie Marg, LAVIE-MARG. Check out my long form articles at lioncubjobsearch.com. Join our group, The Business of the Business, on LinkedIn. We are the official business podcast of PW Ponderings, and we are distributed by the Creative Control Network.
All right. Thank you, Lavie. Thank you, everybody out there, for listening. See you right back here next week for a little business of the business. We'll see you next week, folks.